welcome back, viewers. You're watching NewsX and I am Kriti Mehta. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has met with Canadian Prime Minister Carney in New Delhi today in what is being seen as a major reset in the ties between the two nations. After months of strain, both leaders signaled a clear message. Business, energy and strategic cooperation are back on the track. The big headline: long-term uranium supply. Canada is set to support India's nuclear energy expansion with sustained uranium exports, a significant boost for India's clean energy ambitions and energy security. But that's not all. Both sides have now set an ambitious target: $50 billion in bilateral trade. To make that happen, India and Canada are working toward finalizing a comprehensive economic partnership agreement, or the CEPA, by 2026. This deal is expected to unlock investment, boost manufacturing and create jobs on both sides. Defense and security were also on the table. The two leaders discussed strengthening cooperation in critical minerals, technology and counter-terror efforts, areas that are increasingly shaping global alliances. For Canada, this engagement reflects a broader strategy to expand partnerships in the Indo-Pacific. For India, it's about energy, diversifying supply chains, and deepening global economic influence. The bottom line is that this wasn't just a courtesy call, it was a strategic recalibration. India and Canada are signaling that they are ready to move forward together. In fact, let's now welcome in the discussion here senior economist Ajay Dua is there with us. We also have Ambassador Manju Seth, a former diplomat, foreign affairs expert Arvind Singh Tejawat is there with us, and we also have foreign affairs expert Manan Dwivedi with us in this conversation. Firstly, I want to come to you, Ambassador Manju. How significant is this visit of Mark Carney and him taking on from where Trudeau had left?
It is a very important visit for both countries, given the geopolitical turmoil and the fact that the relations between Canada and the US have seen very difficult times, and of course, since Mark Carney has taken office, he has made an effort to reset the ties, and we see that Justin Trudeau, when he was there, had really, I think, had really taken it to a new depth, taken the relationship to a new depth. And we can't, and it's difficult to understand his approach and what he felt and what he thought he was doing. It's absurd, never. I mean, we've all not had very great relationships, but the partnership between India and Canada has always been on an even keel, so to speak. But with Justin Trudeau, it was totally, it had even it affected our diplomatic ties, and we had to scale down our diplomatic presence, and there was no control on the anti-India elements in Canada. He was seen to be encouraging them and be sort of hobnobbing with them. So I think this visit is a big departure from that low in the relationship to a reset. And already we have seen the two prime ministers have met already at the G7 summit in Canada last year and at the G20 in South Africa. And now this is a bilateral visit which is taking place at a time when, of course, even the war clouds are all over us, but at the same time, India and Canada are both affected by actions of the US president in every which way. And I think this is an important message to the world and to each other that the relationship is important. It requires to be reset. And as rightly mentioned by PM Carney, it is being expanded. So I think it's all in all a very important and significant visit, and I think will lead to a mutually beneficial outcome, including under the CEPA, and of course, as you mentioned, the uranium deal, very important for India. And in all other sectors, AI and minerals, critical minerals, nuclear energy, renewable energy, I think across the board, it is going to be a very positive and important beginning of the reset of the relationship.
All right. Dr. Ajay Dua is with us. He's a senior economist. Dr. Dua, a target of $50 billion trade has been set. Very ambitious. But how do you see that being achieved?
Through a variety of means. First, thank you for having me in this discussion with this illustrious panel. As Ambassador Seth mentioned, it is the first time that in several years we have been able to talk to Canada and vice versa without having any reservations on either side. For the last 2 years, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, under political compulsions. And no more than that, because otherwise, even with his father, when he was the Prime Minister, we had a very good relationship. And in the first term of Justin Trudeau, we were getting along well. It is as he approached the elections, he changed his tune, and the relationship really became hostile to the extent that the diplomats of the two countries had to be kind of reduced in strength, etc. But Mr. Mark Carney, the only Prime Minister, as Mr. Modi also mentioned this morning, a person who's been the governor of head of two central banks in the world, one of the UK and one of Canada, he was talking to a person as distinguished, as clued up about economic, trade, and overall situations as Mr. Mark Carney. And I would start by saying that Mr. Carney has made a name for himself already within a few months of becoming the Prime Minister by asserting the strategic autonomy of Canada, particularly vis-a-vis the neighbor, United States, which has not been treating it well and calling it the, 51st state in the very first meeting when Justin Trudeau met President Trump up on his getting sworn in, and subsequently also the first meeting between the two. Wasn't very cold, wasn't very warm, but Mr. Carney made it a point at that very time to remind us, whatever the meeting may have been about, look, America, the United States and we will remain separate nations forever. He made that a point after Mr. Trump had met with him soon after Carney came to power, and he asserted his autonomy. So it is in this background that what he's been saying, we should look at it and what was said today. Just one other point. Once the United States started behaving with the tariffs the way it has with the rest of the world, it was Mr. Carney who said, it's time the middle powers of the world got together.
Yes.
And the middle powers meant Canada, India, probably China. He didn't mean it, though he's been to China before coming to India. The fact, and that there is a huge trade between the two countries, there's mutual interdependence, but not strategic, I would say. So with India, he's here to strike both an economic partnership at a higher level as well as a strategic one. The strategic ones were spelled out by Ambassador Seth in some detail, that uranium, we signed an agreement after our Civilian Nuclear Cooperation Act was passed in Dr. Manmohan Singh's time. Thereafter, we had signed up with a Canadian company called the Cameco, CAMECO, and our Department of Atomic Energy for securing uranium ore or uranium concentrate for a period of 10 years. Now that period was commencing 2005, ending in 2015. Today, we have taken that forward and signed up, come to an understanding for a longer term cooperation. That's a part of the energy cooperation. So alongside Prime Minister Carney, looking at what's happening in India, seems to have requested that India could help Canada in expanding its power transmission lines. Like in India, we are doing for quite some time what's called HVDC, high voltage direct current lines, which can carry electricity in large quantities across long distances. And Canada, as we know, is a big country, and India could be of use there, not because we are in any way technologically superior, but we've got under our belt huge amount of experience
right.
in laying such lines.
I,
Second, what was agreed to was that from the existing, so far the trade has been below $15 billion annual, even at its peak, with a slight balance in favor of India, the surplus, that we export more than we import.
Yeah.
So it's been agreed that this will be stepped up by 2030, within the next 4.5 years, to $50 billion. That is a lot of increase we are talking about. Energy is going to be one. Uranium could constitute some amount, but we've also talked about agriculture, the complementarity. We've been buying wheat, we've been buying pulses from all over, including Canada in large extents, and that would probably get stepped up as we go into other kind of agricultural products. And as you know, basically Canada is an agrarian economy for most parts, but on its east and west coast, it also is a highly developed engineering industry, highly developed mineral industry on the west coast side. And third, we've agreed, President Carney, also Prime Minister Carney, as soon as he came, he had signed up a deal with India, Australia, and Canada of a common mission for critical minerals. That's the rare earths. And Canada has plenty of ores.
Yeah.
India was taken into it, 3 countries, and I think going forward, that was reiterated today. That's going to be also a major kind of an item of going forward.
All right.
Other 2 or 3 things where some money is going to be, which
All right,
will
I'll come
involve
back
some-
to you, Dr. Du. I want to bring you in now, Manan Dwivedi. $2.6 billion uranium deal. How significant is that, especially at a time when the START treaty has expired?
Important to mention a few historical incidents, or maybe antecedents and precedents. If you look into it, what we are going to find is that Canada and India, they always had a point for each other, or maybe a point against each other, especially when in 1974, India carried on the Pokhran blast, the first Shakti explosions under Prime Minister Indira Gandhi and other people. And at that point of time, the entire Western world was against us, led by America and other, Occidental countries. And as a kind of a reprieve to tide over the so-called damage that had been caused to the non-proliferation regime, and for the cause of disarmament, the nuclear supplier group was formed at that particular point of time. And since then, we have been hobnobbing with Canada, and Canada has a very positive help they have doled out to Indian nuclear installations too in the 80s and the 80s. So, that kind of a thing, when the entire world is shrouded by the shadows, the clouds of war, the war clouds, and we are only talking about, let's say, the mayhem and the collateral damage and misery in Ukraine and Russia, or the kind of carte blanche that has been given to folks in the Israeli So what we need to understand here is that here it comes like a whiff of fresh air as far as India-Canada relations are concerned, because once again, going back into 80s, which still the people do not know. The academics are having a big tiff about it, whether some diplomats are also involved in it or not, that when we talk about the idea or the conceptualization of human security, something which is very much innate to the Indian Sanatani experience also. But when we talk about Canada, Japan, Switzerland, their prime ministers in the 80s and 90s ushering in as a kind of a global regime the concept of human security, sustainability, climate change, and an overall a very eclectic perception and understanding of security. Then this desecuritization of the discourse was not welcomed even by some of the Indians. Still, it is not welcomed. But you know what is the point that I'm trying to make is that as far as peaceability, stability, peace, camaraderie, and international cooperation is concerned, through the idea of trade and investment, we can see that the uranium thing is very much welcome, and India will be getting, that is what will be signed or has been signed in this Mike Carney visit, $2.5 billion worth of uranium. And we have always championed India and Canada too, to a great extent, the peaceability and the non-nuke nature of energy cooperation.
All right.
So I think
let's bring in Arvind Singh Tejawat also in this point in the discussion. Mr. Tejawat, after the diplomatic rupture following the killing of Nijar and now Carney and Prime Minister Modi meeting, beyond formal diplomacy, what's really needed to rebuild trust between New Delhi and Ottawa?
The Indian government, especially the foreign minister, he always denied that India is having any role in killing Nijar or all. But the Canadian government and their officials, the investigating officers, they are especially blaming on India that, of course, the India supported some of the terrorist group. They killed the Nijar and all. So at that moment, the Indian diplomats, they were very much clear that, okay, the relationship between India and Canada is go suffer, and that has happened in Justin Trudeau's regime. And then after India was awaiting, and it even by the foreign minister, a clear statement was made that during the Justin Trudeau's government, the India has no hope to build a good relationship with the Canada. And later on, when the Carney came, so it was expected that India will go good relationship with the Canada, and that has happened. And in fact, if we see the reality, if we see the current political or the geopolitical scenario of that particularly in that Euro-American term, then of course the Canada is afraid of the United States because of the imperialist way of thinking. The United States is willing to expand to the not only the Colombia, but is willing to expand to the Canada and the Greenland. Here, the United States also claim on a Greenland. So the Canada, of course, is having a fear and in a search of good friend. The Canada's dependency on India is, of course. So I suppose that now if the Mark Carney and the Prime Minister Narendra Modi sahab, they have decided to go along, that it was almost decided when Justin Trudeau decided not to go along with India because of his political compulsion. So I suppose it's a good news, and it's good for the India also. And if we are making a good tie with Canada, and Prime Minister Modi is making a good understanding with Mark Carney, then I suppose it's a good news for us.
All right, Ambassador Seth, how significant is this visit by Mark Carney in strategic terms? Is it just economic reset, or is it deeper alignment with India in terms of geopolitics in the Indo-Pacific region?
I think it's a combination of all these factors. Yes, it's a reset in the economic ties, in the trade ties, strategic ties, in the Indo-Pacific as well, maritime security, and ensuring maritime security in the Indo-Pacific. The defense dialogue has been initiated between two countries, and I think it will only build from strength to strength, go from strength to strength. And I believe that this partnership is significant. And it's, as very rightly mentioned by Mr. Dua, this is something which is, the middle powers. It's in this turmoil and this resetting of the world balance and world order, the middle powers have to come together. And I think very rightly said that India and Canada and other like-minded countries will be more and more working together to safeguard their interests, and especially given that President Trump's unpredictability and his way of functioning is totally something which, we don't know what he's going to do next. So everybody is trying now to hedge their bets, to ensure their own interests, and to forge alliances and partnerships which will be more balanced, predictable, based on on a rules-based kind of architecture, and promote not only bilateral ties but also general, prosperity in the larger area, in the larger world. I think that is what the intent is of all the middle powers, that they need to come together and to challenge the kind of the whip unleashed by the US on the rest of the world, and against friends and foes alike. And I think power talks, and I think that is important, that power is strengthened by coming together, and it gives them a more leverage against the actions of countries like the US, and I think to some extent China as well. Because China is also, it acts quite unilaterally and quite quietly, and is able to have its writ because of its economic power and its status right now in many emerging technologies, and the core dependencies that have come about amongst the countries with China, various countries, including with China, between Canada and China, India and China, the US and China. And I think it has leveraged that, and I think we have, so Canada, and so this is a very good opportunity for Canada and India to forge a closer relationship in
Right. Okay.
in the
Dr.
Indo-Pacific
Dua, right. How transformative can this bilateral uranium deal really be, given India's expanding energy demands and its nuclear power? And can it really create interdependence between the two nations for a long term?
Is the question addressed to me?
Yes, Dr. Dua.
Right. I'll just take you back to the early 60s, when India had just embarked on the path to generate nuclear power in India. People had looked askance, but Pandit Nehru, the then Prime Minister, had taken a very conscious decision in his government to do that. The first reactor which came to India was what's called the Candu type. Candu was the Canadian vessel reactor, and it was set up at a place called Tarapur near Mumbai, on the border of Gujarat and Maharashtra, where the nuclear power station came to be. We had certain problems with it about size, etc., because it had come as a donation and not quite as we hadn't quite purchased it. So those are issues apart, but the cooperation with Canada in nuclear energy dates back to 70 odd years. That is a point I just wanted to draw the panelists' discussion and your viewers. Going forward, 2010, when we signed, Dr. Manmohan Singh had staked his government's full reputation on this particular deal which he wanted, which was signed with President Bush. We signed two agreements soon thereafter with Canada. One was, I had mentioned about the supply of uranium ore or uranium concentrate for a certain number of years. The second one signed that very year was Indian Atomic Energy Regulatory Authority and the Authority of Canada, which was called the CCNSC, Canada Nuclear Safety Center, or CES probably stood for Center, saying that we will learn from Canada about the safety aspects as well as the regulatory aspects. That Canada was already in this business of nuclear power. We were taking advantage of it, and Canada did not hesitate in sharing its own experiences. The outside nuclear power, I had visited Canada to talk about energy when I was in the Ministry of Electricity in the early 90s. As a Joint Secretary, I had gone there.
All right.
And the Canadians were free. Freely they exchanged information about their regulations in the field of energy. At a place called Calgary, I remember having their regulatory board was there, and for 4 or 5 days, they kind of, with our delegation, I was taking a technical delegation from India. We had discussed all these things at great length.
Yeah,
After
okay.
all, energy ultimately, whether it's nuclear or other,
Dr. Dua,
regulations-
quickly your concluding remarks, please. We're running out of time in this discussion.
Yeah.
Please do complete yourself.
Yeah, all that I wanted to say was that we have a historical relationship in field of energy with Canada, and in between, probably last 2 or 3 years, for the reasons we discussed earlier,
All right.
the relationship may have had some hiccups, but going forward, we know each other's field, each other's energy industry,
All right.
or the aspects of it. It has been also agreed today that in renewable energy, where India is doing well, including in production of solar panels, we will have greater cooperation.
All right.
Sure.
We would wind up this discussion at that. Ambassador Seth and all gentlemen, thanks very much for joining us.